It was a Saturday like any other. At least, it was supposed to be. The air was thick with the usual smells of fluorescent-lit produce, overripe bananas, and bakery sugar. Mark stood beside the shopping cart, absently scrolling his phone as his wife, Emily, debated between two brands of almond milk. She was in a pleasant mood, humming a melody he didn't recognize, wearing that lilac blouse he'd bought her last month. Mark noticed a young cashier a few lanes down watching them intently. A woman maybe mid-20s, freckled, with tired eyes. He looked away. They reached the front of their checkout line. The usual rhythm. Emily unloaded items, chatted about dinner plans, and Mark stepped forward to pay. The cashier took his card, swiped it, and in one swift, almost imperceptible move, passed back a receipt with a folded square of paper. She never broke her professional tone. "Have a good day." Mark palmed the note, instinctively slipping it into his jacket. Something in her face, an urgency she didn't let reach her voice, lodged a spike of unease deep into his spine. Back in the car aisle, while Emily loaded groceries into the trunk, Mark turned away, fished out the paper, and read. "You're in serious trouble. Don't trust her. No signature. Just blocky, capital letters in blue ink." His heart stalled. Cold sweat bloomed across his back. For 3 breathless seconds, Mark did nothing. The world around him, the idling cars, crying toddlers, squeaking carts, blurred into static. He turned toward Emily. She was laughing at something on her phone. Innocent. Perfectly composed. Except, hadn't she been texting more lately? Password-guarded phone. Longer work hours. New perfume. She said it was a sample from a friend. The note trembled slightly in his hand. Mark didn't get into the car. Instead, he walked. Fast. Through rows of SUVs and sedans, across the lot and straight into a waiting taxi. 40 minutes later, Woodlawn Police Precinct. "You want to run that by me again?" the officer asked, not unkindly. Mark placed the note on the metal desk. "A stranger gave this to me. Said I'm in danger and not to trust my wife. I don't know what it means, but I believe her." The officer's brows knit together. "Has your wife ever threatened you?" "No. Never. That's the thing. Nothing that obvious. But this," he tapped the note. "I felt something. She meant it. The cashier. Whoever she is, she knows something." The officer leaned back. "All right, Mr. Bellamy. Let's start with names. Your wife's full name?" "Emily Catherine Bellamy." "Occupation?" "She's a financial consultant. Corporate clients, mid-sized firms." "She's good. I thought." The officer started typing. "And the cashier?" "No idea. But I can get you the store. The register. Timestamp. She's the only one who's warned me of anything in years." Meanwhile, parking lot, supermart. Emily slammed the trunk shut, smiling. "Mark." Silence. She circled the car, irritation mounting. Mark. He was gone. Groceries wilting in the heat. No message. No call. No sign. And in that moment, something flickered in her expression. Not worry. Fear. Mark sat rigid in the windowless interview room, the air heavy with the antiseptic tang of institutional cleaners. The note lay between him and Detective Angela Rowe, who'd been called in after the patrol officer reviewed the situation. She was mid-40s, observant, and didn't rush her silences. Mark respected that. He understood the strategy. He used to do the same in depositions. "You said the cashier handed this to you without speaking?" she asked. He nodded. She looked, afraid, but calm. Intentional. Detective Rowe leaned back. "People don't risk their jobs or safety to warn strangers without a reason. Either you're a dangerous man and she's trying to protect someone, or she's trying to protect you." Mark gave a dry laugh. "I haven't raised my voice to anyone in months. I barely drink. I work. I go home. I pay the bills." "Your wife's name again?" "Emily Bellamy." "And you say she's a financial consultant?" "Yes. Works mostly from home, or so she says." Detective Rowe steepled her fingers. "If someone's trying to warn you away from your own wife, it raises 2 immediate questions. 1. What danger are they suggesting you're in? And 2. What kind of person needs to be warned about someone they trust enough to marry?" Mark stared down at his hands. "That's what I'm trying to find out." Rowe stood, motioning to the uniformed officer outside. "Get someone on the supermart surveillance. Pull footage from registers 5 through 8. And I want a name on every employee working from 3 to 5 p.m. in that zone." She turned to Mark. "You're staying somewhere else tonight?" He hesitated. "Yeah, I'll get a hotel." "Good. You'll want distance while we find out what's going on." "Elsewhere?" Emily's phone. In the driver's seat of her BMW, Emily hit redial for the third time. Voicemail again. Mark, it's me. Where are you? Her voice wavered, but just enough to sound concerned. You left without saying anything. I'm worried. She ended the call, then opened her text thread with V. Emily, we might have a problem. V, what kind of problem? Emily, he's gone. He never came back to the car. V, did he see the note? Emily, I think so. V, then it's starting. Emily, I told you this wasn't part of the deal. V, it was always part of the deal. You just didn't believe it. Emily's hands trembled as she locked her phone. The words on the screen blurred for a second. Hotel Glenwood, room 403. Mark stared out at the city from the 10th floor. He hadn't even called anyone, not his brother, not his coworker Darren. There was something about this that made him feel watched. The note had turned his world inside out, and now, every detail of the last 6 months flashed with new meaning. The new password on Emily's laptop. The hotel rewards card she'd said was a freebie from a client. The burner phone he'd found in the back of her drawer and explained away. And the text, half-read on her screen one morning, quickly swiped away. Did you get the files? Don't let him near the account. He convinced himself it was work-related. But now? He opened his own laptop and started digging. Detective Rose sipped her coffee as she clicked through the supermarket security footage. The timestamp from Mark's receipt gave them a window, 3:37 p.m., lane 6. She slowed the feed. There he was, pale blue jacket, standing next to his wife. And there, lane 6, stood the cashier, a woman in a faded navy smock, her red hair tied back, a bruise faintly visible along her jaw. Rose zoomed in as the moment unfolded. Mark handed her his card. She processed it, then slipped something under the receipt. The paper. The note. But what caught Rose's attention wasn't just the action. It was the brief eye contact between the woman and the camera. As if she knew someone would be watching. Smart girl, Rose muttered. She paused the screen and zoomed in again. Name tag. S. Alden. 3 hours later, backroom of Supermart. Sandra Alden sat stiffly across from Detective Rose, her hands in her lap, knuckles white. I could lose my job for this, she said. Or worse. Rose placed the note gently on the table. You knew this would catch our attention, so make it worth the risk. Sandra looked around the empty break room, then leaned in. I don't know his name. The man. But I've seen him with her before. She comes in sometimes alone, and he's always waiting outside in a black Mercedes. Always tinted windows. She walks out, gets him like it's no big deal. Rose watched her carefully. So you assumed she was cheating? No, Sandra shook her head. It was the way she looked at him, and the way he looked around. Not like lovers sneaking around. More like handlers. Like control. She shivered. The last time they were in, he followed her inside and they argued near the pharmacy. She was crying, and he grabbed her wrist hard. I reported it. But they're both smooth. Calmed down before security got there. And this time, Sandra swallowed. He came in while she was shopping with her husband. I saw him at the end of the aisle, just watching. And she saw him too, barely flinched. Like she expected him. She exhaled sharply. That's when I knew. The husband, Mark, he was the outsider. And I thought, maybe he's the only one who doesn't know what's happening. Rose nodded slowly. You did the right thing. Hotel Glenwood, room 403. Mark's laptop glowed in the darkroom. He had a list of financial records pulled from their shared accounts. There were oddities, transfers to unrecognized LLCs, payments that had no attached invoice, and one recurring memo. Asset cover. V. Morgan. The initials rang no bells. A search of the LLC led to a shell entity in Delaware, traced to a real estate portfolio specializing in offshore investments. Emily had never mentioned any of it. Mark leaned back, heart thudding. Asset cover. He opened the folder Emily once kept in her home office drawer. Before she locked it. Inside, real estate proposals, a pre-approval for a loan in her maiden name, and a contract for a rental property in British Columbia. Then he found the photo. It wasn't labeled. Just a grainy image from a parking garage. Emily, walking beside a tall man in a black coat. No date. No context. But her hand was in his. The man in the photo had the posture of authority, shoulders squared, steps precise. The kind of man who didn't just move through the world, but controlled his environment. Mark studied the image, zooming in on his face. It was partly obscured, but there was something familiar in the angular jaw and slick back hair. Somewhere between a politician and a mercenary. Mark dropped the image into a facial recognition database, something a tech client had once demoed for him. The results began populating within minutes. Top match, Victor Morgan. Occupation, private intelligence contractor. Former affiliations, Global Strat, Arcadia Risk Group. Known for asset tracing, high-level surveillance, and blackmail mitigation. The term sent a chill through Mark's bones. Why would a man like that be connected to his wife? Woodlawn Police Department, 9:17 a.m. Detective Rowe clicked through Morgan's digital trail. Victor Morgan has been involved in 2 major corporate blackmail scandals. Both times, his role was legal, but slippery. He moves assets, erases people, gets hired to clean up messy lives, not make them better. Rowe turned her screen toward Mark. And here's your wife, listed as a consultant for one of his subsidiary firms. She helped him restructure his real estate holdings 2 years ago. Mark stared at the screen. She said she was helping a friend set up passive income streams. She wasn't lying, Rose said. She just didn't say what kind of income. Emily's apartment, downtown loft, rented in her maiden name. Victor Morgan poured himself a scotch while Emily stared out the window, pale and distracted. You said he wouldn't notice, Victor said evenly. He wasn't supposed to, she murmured. And yet here we are. You're unraveling him. That's dangerous. For both of us. Emily turned sharply. You're the one who showed up at the store. You made it visible. I had to. Our other friend made herself known. The cashier. He nodded. She's a risk. A dumb one, but risks tend to spread. And your husband? He's not stupid. He doesn't scare easily. Emily's voice cracked. Then what do we do? Victor stepped closer, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. We remind him why trusting people gets you hurt. We make him doubt himself. Hotel Glenwood, room 403. Mark's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He debated, then answered. Mr. Bellamy, a deep voice said. My name is Victor. You've made some unsettling inquiries. Mark's throat tightened. I have a right to know who's been near my wife. Funny. That's exactly what she said before she came to me. A pause. I think we both want the same thing. Truth. Closure. No one has to get hurt. But if you push too hard, people will start thinking you're unstable. Emotional. That's not a good look for someone in your business. Mark was silent. Victor's voice dropped to a whisper. Watch your step, Mark. You're walking on glass. The line went dead. Mark sat frozen, the phone still in his hand. Victor's voice echoed in his mind, laced with a predator's certainty. Watch your step. But fear had a funny effect on Mark. It didn't freeze him. It focused him. He grabbed his laptop, copied every document he'd found into a secure cloud drive, then emailed encrypted links to 2 people. One, his old friend Darren, a cybersecurity consultant who owed him more than a few favors. And the other, his divorce lawyer, Sarah Rylance. A move that had once seemed unthinkable now felt like an inevitability. He titled the folder, If I Disappear. Then he checked out of the hotel without warning. Elsewhere, Supermart employee housing. Detective Rowe met Sandra Alden in a quiet booth of a 24-hour diner. She slid a cup of tea toward her and lowered her voice. You're not safe, Rowe said. We've ID'd the man you saw. His name's Victor Morgan. His version of client support includes intimidation and asset relocation. You're now a witness in something bigger than you realize. Sandra's face drained of color. I just wanted to help him. He looked like he didn't know he was walking into a trap. Rowe nodded. You did. But now I need you to disappear for a few days. Pack a bag. No credit cards. No phone. I'll put you somewhere secure. Sandra didn't argue. That, Rowe noted, meant she was smart. Late night, Darren's apartment. Darren scanned through the files Mark sent, eyes narrowing. Jesus, Mark. I need to know what these accounts are. Where they go. And how many of them are tied to Victor. Darren whistled low. Some of these shell companies are old. Layered over decades old. I've seen this kind of web before. Espionage firms use it to move money without oversight. He clicked open one document. Here, look at this. A series of rental properties. They're all being funneled through trusts, and one of them is in your name. Mark leaned forward. What? Darren nodded grimly. It's a setup. Paper trail shows you signed the lease 6 months ago. Except the notary is fake. They're constructing a parallel narrative. For what? I don't know. But if they've been laying this groundwork, they're not just planning to erase you. They're planning to replace you. Emily's apartment, 3:13 a.m. Victor stood at the window, watching headlights dance across the building opposite. He's moving too fast, he said. Emily, wrapped in a blanket, sat quietly on the couch. He was always like that. Once he gets momentum, there's no stopping him. Victor turned. Then we adjust. Discredit him. Send him chasing ghosts. He finds too much truth too soon, and we both burn. Emily met his gaze, and for the first time, there was doubt. What if he doesn't stop because he loved me? Not because he wants revenge? Victor scoffed. Love is a tool, Emily. It makes people blind, desperate, and easy to ruin. By sunrise, Mark had driven 2 hours out of the city to a private cabin once used by his father-in-law, before the man passed and left Emily a tidy inheritance she never disclosed. Darren had traced one of the ghost companies to a trust tied to this very property. The place had been scrubbed from the family portfolio, but the mortgage was still active, paid on autopilot from a hidden account. The cabin was untouched. Clean. Stocked? Too clean. Mark found the key exactly where Darren said it would be, taped behind the wooden frame of a rusted electrical box. Inside, he flipped the breaker and waited. Lights flickered on. Quiet. He turned to the fireplace. A fresh pile of wood, stacked neatly. But the ashes inside were still warm. Someone had been here. Cyberlab, downtown. Darren cross-referenced bank logs, property records, and email metadata. One shell company, Tanner Holdings, stood out. It had only one regular transaction, a weekly deposit of $7,500 to a Canadian account in the name of E. Morgan. He double-checked. That wasn't Emily's married name. It was her maiden name, Edwards. Darren called Mark. She's been laundering money under a dual identity. She's not just working with Victor. She's partnered with him. Mark went quiet. What kind of money? Based on the patterns? It's not just stolen. It's moved, like they're preparing to cut and vanish. Detective Rowe's office. Rowe reviewed her notes. Victor Morgan, financial shell games, one real estate consultant, and now evidence of forged leases tied to Mark's name. But what triggered her concern was a court record from 6 years ago. Victor had once been involved in a similar case in Oregon. A man accused of fraud, implicated by altered documents, lost custody of his child and nearly his freedom. Only the man's suicide halted the proceedings and the investigation. Rowe circled the name on the file, Kevin Haldeman. Next to it, lead financial consultant, Emily Edwards. This is a pattern, she thought grimly. They're repeating it. She called Mark immediately. Do not contact your wife. Do not confront her. She's not working alone, and this goes deeper than we thought. Emily's apartment, 9:07 p.m. Emily stared at her burner phone, watching the message from an unknown number repeat. You were never the real architect. You were the asset. She dropped the phone as if it had burned her. The walls of her control were collapsing. Mark wasn't where she expected. Sandra had vanished. And Victor was no longer answering her calls. A soft knock came at the door. She froze. Second knock. More insistent. She looked through the peephole. No one there. The cabin, hidden safe. Behind a false panel in the master bedroom closet, Mark found a hidden wall safe. The code was written in pen on the inside of the closet hinge. Old-school arrogance, he thought. Inside were files, backup drives, and a single photo. Emily and Victor, smiling, arms wrapped around a third man. Mark's throat went dry. The third man was Kevin Haldeman, the one from Rowe's report. Emily had done this before, and that man had died. The photo didn't lie. Kevin Haldeman, Victor's former associate, and the man Emily had supposedly never met, stood beaming between them in a sunlit courtyard. Emily's hand rested on his chest, her smile too real, too intimate to fake. Mark stared at it for a long time before reaching for the files beneath it. The first folder was a copy of a psychiatric evaluation, Kevin Haldeman, 6 months before his death. Words like delusional, paranoid, and hallucinations were scrawled in clinical shorthand. But something felt off. The report was too tidy, too scripted, like it was written to tell a particular story. The next file was a legal brief, motion to dismiss, fraud charges, filed 1 week after Haldeman's suicide. The case was dropped, evidence sealed. They framed him. Then they erased him. Mark's stomach churned. He flipped to the last document, a bank transfer. Haldeman's retirement savings emptied 2 days before his death. Recipient, E. Morgan. Police Archive, Detective Rowe. Rowe sifted through digital court records long after dark. The deeper she dug into Kevin Haldeman's past, the more the patterns repeated. A lucrative project. A sudden financial discrepancy. Documents with his signature, later proven forgeries. And Emily's name, again and again, on side contracts and consulting invoices. She pulled up the suicide report. An anonymous 911 call. No sign of forced entry. Cause of death, fentanyl overdose. Yet Kevin had no prescription history. His toxicology came back as non-recreational grade pure. Industrial. The kind of dose you couldn't get unless someone gave it to you. She picked up her phone. Mark, I think you were right to be afraid. Emily and Victor, this isn't their first time. Mark's voice was steel. And I won't be the next. Emily's apartment, midnight. Emily scrolled through archived emails, hands trembling. She found an old chain from Kevin, buried in her inbox. Buried, but not deleted. Kevin, you said we were building something real. Kevin, he scares me. Victor doesn't let go of people. He uses them until they break. Kevin, I don't want to disappear. Emily stared at the last one. The message he sent the night before he died. She had never replied. The cabin basement, 3:14 a.m. Mark descended into the basement with gloves and a flashlight. He had noticed the uneven floor tile earlier, a subtle irregularity someone meticulous would have covered better. He pried it up with a crowbar and found what he feared. A buried lockbox. Inside, USB drives. Photos. Scanned documents. Videos. He plugged one into his laptop. It was surveillance footage, grainy, time-stamped. A hotel hallway. Kevin stumbling, supported by Emily and Victor. Slurred words. The sound barely audible. I can't. I didn't sign anything, please. The screen cut to black. Then, a new date. Victor alone, leaving a hotel room. Kevin never appeared again.